welcome to Book Chat Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. Drop where you're coming in from. And what's the weather like where you are? It's sunny here in Utah in the United States. It's a beautiful, chilly day. But today is Chapter 3, and we're going to be talking about treating depression and different methods people use to treat depression. And Dr. Ilardi starts it off by talking about one of his classes he was teaching, and it's called the Abnormal Psychology class. And he asked his students, what's the most effective treatment for depression? And without really a pause, everybody unanimously said antidepressants. But one year he had a student say, well, I had a friend on antidepressants, but she had bad side effects, and so she had to get off them. So it just made him question even further his research on antidepressants and the study and effectiveness of antidepressants. And one of the things he said was that there are over 150 million antidepressant prescriptions in the United States alone, and that's a 400% increase since 1990, but depression's not going down, so that's really alarming. Exactly how beneficial are these medicines? And that's what he goes into. He talks about some of the research he's done and the percentages behind them. He says that on one of the studies in 2004 with Zoloft, Paxil, and Prozac, only 23% were depression-free after 6 months of treatment. The studies also showed the antidepressants against placebo, a sugar pill, and alarmingly the sugar pill performed as well as the antidepressant. Now, this was not the case in people that were severely depressed, like non-functional because it was so bad, but for people that were still functioning and had depression, it was alarmingly similar. And that's because in a placebo pill, the positive expectancies can exert a powerful effect on the brain, increasing activity in circuits of the frontal cortex that are normally dormant during depression. But of course, it's not ethical to give out sugar pills. So they don't have a super, let me back up. They actually have to test every antidepressant with a placebo to make sure it's effective in order to get it passed and on the market. But surprisingly, a lot of sugar pills actually test similarly to antidepressants. So neither placebos nor antidepressants are particularly effective, what they found in the research he did and the research and studies he read about. Even when antidepressants are effective, in the short run, their healing effects don't always endure. He talks about there's this thing called the poop out, where you're actually going along feeling well, your antidepressants are working, then one day you wake up and you're back to square one. They just stop working. And that's not good either. So we know that far fewer than 1 in 4 are fortunate enough both to get well and stay well on antidepressants. So then he talks about the side effects of antidepressants. And he wants to make it clear that he is not against antidepressants. They are working for some people. They're improving people's lives. But he's noticing that the percentage is so low, there's got to be a different method. There's got to be something that works better than the 23% that are actually being helped. Some of the side effects of antidepressants are suicide, emotional numbing. I actually have someone I know that talks about when she's been on her antidepressants, she can't feel happiness and joy, like her romantic relations are not good. And she didn't like that. She didn't like the numbing. Also, sexual dysfunction, weight gain, and insomnia. Those are all side effects from antidepressants. But, aside from antidepressants, there's also therapy. There's a lot of great therapists, a lot of great therapies out there that are very helpful for people. It starts with the Freudian therapy, sit on the couch, dig deep, talk about all your psychosis things in the past, but we've come a long way since then. In fact, there's a man named Aaron Beck that came up with what's called cognitive therapy, and he noticed that people were really ruminating a lot and being far more depressed when they were dwelling on their negative feelings. So what he did with cognitive therapy was he'd have them write down their thoughts and examine them through the objective lens of reason. Patients started disputing their negative interpretations of things and replacing them with less biased perceptions. And that actually worked really well, and it helped, but not as much as one would hope. So then another doctor named Neil Jacobson, he built upon that, and he introduced what's called behavioral activation. So in addition to the cognitive therapy, he would actually have people that he was working with do things. He would see how much they would improve if they became active and engaged. So they'd get out, they'd socialize, they'd play, they'd accomplish things, and it helped a lot. The act of doing things and turning away from ruminating, interrupting that negative thought pattern, is so powerful. Action in any form is really important. One of the things that they discovered is that anti-rumination activities may be the single most effective antidepressant psychotherapy technique ever. So a lot of people don't do therapy, though. They don't know where to start. There's so many different options. That's one of the things that's hard about depression. It's different for everybody. So that's one reason why Dr. Ilardi has introduced the 6 steps, is because he feels like you can cater it to yourself and to different people. So I'm going to talk next week. Really excited because we're actually diving in to the 6 steps, and we're starting with brain food next week. So thank you for tuning in. Just going over some of the techniques that people are using for depression and their effectiveness, and it really sounds to me like there's a long way to go to find things that are really effective for depression, but there's been a huge shift, and a lot of people are finding that being active, turning away from rumination, is really helping. So I'd love to know where you're coming in from. Also, if you have a positive story with your antidepressant medication, like, is it working for you? I'd love to hear that. Or what is working for you? What have you found? Have you found a therapy treatment that you love? Have you found a therapist that's totally helping you? Like, we're here to help each other, and I'm more natural. I'm more on the natural end of wanting to manage depression naturally. That's what my husband's doing, and it's working. But there's so many methods for everybody. I'd love to hear what's working for you. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week when we talk about brain food.